Caribbean community CARICOM leaders have since morning on Friday been meeting in this room here where they are in caucus. The caucus has been taking place discussing a number of issues ranging from the United States change in policy towards the Caribbean, as well as climate change, and of course, the Caribbean single market and economy. Some of the leaders are already leaving, and one of those leaving is the Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister, Gaston Browne. He gives us an insight as to what has been transpiring behind the closed doors.
Yeah, well, we didn't focus extensively on climate, even though climate remains perhaps the most significant existential threat facing the region. We have many fora in which we have discussed the issue of climate change, and we continue to advocate for the full capitalization and operationalization of the loss and damage fund. I mean, that is our major issue this time. And obviously we continue to push the major emitters to reduce emissions. And even within our own space, we are looking at other green energy technologies to include hydrogen technologies. You'd recognize that the President of the European Union would have suggested that perhaps there could be some partnership going forward with hydrogen technologies, as most of the ships, for example, will transition into using hydrogen energy. So general discussions, there wasn't any extensive discussions on the issue of climate per se, but there are other issues. Of course, we looked at the geopolitical issues, global geopolitical issues, the changes in the United States, and we are hoping to engage senior members of the U.S. administration as soon as practicable. We're hoping too that we can, or that will be successful, inviting President Trump to the region. I think it's very important for him to, pay some attention to the third border of the United States, and also to enter into meaningful discussions as to how U.S. policies will impact on the region, especially the smaller countries within the OCS sub-region. Many of us have open economies, and we import up to about 80% of what we consume, primarily from the United States. So if the tariffs that the U.S. intends to apply, they result in an increase in prices in the U.S., then clearly we will have a serious situation with imported inflation. And there are other issues, even, for example, the impact on U.S. support for WHO, PAHO. PAHO has written to us advising that there will be a $56 million gap in the funding as a result of a reduction in support from WHO. And obviously that comes from the withdrawal of support from the U.S. And even in terms of other assistance from U.S. aid, there's a gap now of about $56 million US. And that itself not only represents a threat for the Caribbean, but also for the United States. COVID would have taught us that no one is safe until all of us are safe. So we're hoping that we can engage, perhaps initially at the level of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and then with a subsequent engagement with President Trump as we seek to strengthen the relationship between the region and the United States.
How soon do you expect, for example, that meeting, if it's being planned with President Trump?
We don't have any specific timelines, but these are aspirations, and we're making every attempt now to, in the first instance, to meet with senior Trump officials or Trump administration officials, to include Marco Rubio, and subsequently with the President himself.
There is a suggestion that the CARICOM going to ask President Lula of Brazil to come together to write countries which they regard as emitters of global warming.
Well, I'm pretty sure that when we get to Brazil in COP30, that we will ask Brazil to step up and to help us in accelerating the decarbonization of global economies, obviously to save the planet and especially to protect poor and vulnerable countries in this region. We're on the front lines of climate change, and we have to continue to use our advocacy to push for decarbonization.
Thanks, Terrence.
Yes, Prime Minister Holness would have had a meeting with Mr. Rubio. Did he share anything about that meeting? And will he be key in
those are very
meeting?
private discussions, and yeah, we certainly would not want to speculate any discussions that may have taken place between the distinguished Prime Minister and the Secretary of State.
Yesterday, the Trump administration rolled back immigration protections for over 500,000 Haitians. Did that come up? Is there concern?
Yes, we are concerned because already you have so many gang members, hundreds of thousands of people on the streets, and if you end up with maybe another 200,000 criminals on the streets of Haiti, it will make the situation even more complex. So that is of serious concern for us, and we're hoping that even in our subsequent engagements with Rubio and potentially with the president, if we can get an engagement before the end of the 6-month period, that we can ask them to reconsider the impact of such a decision. On
Regards to the summit, what is it in it for St. Kitts Nevis? What has happened? What would come out for St. Kitts Nevis?
Well, I think that anytime CARICOM is successful, all members of CARICOM are also successful. I want to reinforce the point that CARICOM makes a lot of sense to all of us. When you look at all of the institutions that are part of CARICOM, these institutions help all of the countries, and no country on its own would be able to have an institution of this caliber and quality if they were to stand on their own. So I want all the people of the region to know, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to know that CARICOM makes our lives better. There are specific things, of course, that were discussed with about St. Kitts and Nevis that will benefit from. For example, the energy prospect that we have with the EU at this particular time. We think that that can be something that can positively help St. Kitts and Nevis. We discuss a lot of issues about security matters that can help St. Kitts and Nevis as well. As you know, security issues through the region are of critical importance at this particular time. We talked about education, health. So all of these matters that we discussed, St. Kitts and Nevis, of course, would benefit.
We understand there was also a discussion about possibly inviting U.S. President Trump to the region. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, as you can see, CARICOM is an organization that is open, an organization that interacts with all and respects all. As you see, we had the President of the EU Commission, we also had the Secretary General of the United Nations, and inviting a president of another country is in order so that we can dialogue and see the best way forward for both the CARICOM and that particular country and for the world in general.
Particularly with his foreign affairs policy, not so, and its impact on the region, be it direct or indirect.
Well, I would say everything with any country is always on the table and looking for consensus and common ground and the best way forward.
On the question of climate change, Prime Minister, there is a suggestion that Caribbean countries have been asked to more or less mobilize and make sure that the 1.5 degrees is maintained. Could you give us some more details on
Well,
that?
we have been discussing climate change. As you know, the Caribbean region is on the front line of climate change. We see the Hurricane Beryl, for example. We saw Gaston at your shores, the higher temperatures, and everything that is involved. And so we have been advocating strongly that climate change is real and that the world need to act as one to deal with this. And so we have been mobilized, and others might say, let's mobilize more. But the Caribbean will continue to push as much as possible so that this matter is dealt with. We see some improvements here and there, but we know that much more can be done. We are the victims of climate change. We are not the producers, we did not cause this. And so we are asking for climate justice. So yes, the Caribbean would mobilize even more and continue to push the issue of climate change to bring justice for all of our people.
Did you find common ground on the issue of Haiti, the elections, or any concerns about Trump's decision yesterday?
Right. So I think there would be a statement that would come out after the meeting, and I think that there's common ground that would be revealed in that.
What are your thoughts on the issue?
Well, basically, it is what CARICOM stands for, and that is to make sure that we bring stability to Haiti and take care of the security matters and help to prepare Haiti for elections. Again, I would stress that this is a Haitian-based solution. We are there to support so that Haiti can once again be a country that is secured and serving its people.
The regional leaders are expected to inform the media on the outcome of their 3-day deliberations at a news conference later on Friday.